Hey, new patient group and Right Chat Nation. Welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian right here, and welcome to Season 5, Episode number 3. Going to be talking about a really scary word a little bit today in healthcare. Now, if you're an avid follower out there, if you're a new patient group client, you've kind of gotten over this scary word in healthcare, and that is sales. I know it is a dirty word to many of you out there, but it shouldn't be. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today, of why you shouldn't be scared, why you need to embrace it. And we're going to be talking about the 80-20 sales rule and how it relates to the biggest mistake you are currently making inside your TC and doctor exam. Now, a lot of business owners that listen to this podcast that aren't doctors, they're just entrepreneurs out there. Maybe they're a marketing company, a restaurant, whatever it may be. This absolutely applies to many of you and really anybody that has a business that functions in a competitive industry where people have choices. This is something that really can transform your life and your business if you follow along and really grasp on to what I'm going to be talking about today. Very powerful, but simple at the same time. It's not rocket science, but we talk so much on here. You know, it is rocket science at the same time because there's very few people that have fully grasped what I'm going to be teaching you today, all right? So looking forward to a great one. Hope everyone's doing great out there. Before we get started, let's fire up the music.
A practice on almost every corner, and the modern-day consumer viewing you as a commodity. So why is it the best time in history to own a practice? The answers are all right here. Welcome to Season 5 of the New Patient Group Audio Experience, a business, marketing, and life coaching podcast dedicated to helping doctors dominate the new economy. And now your host, he's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Right Chat, and a trusted motivational speaker for the finest companies in the world, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome in. Hope you're rocking and rolling out there. Hope 2021 is awesome for you. This one I've had on the back burner for a while. Something from the very first day back when I started New Patient Group decade ago. Wow, it's been a crazy 10 years, but there's been ups and downs, and it's been a beautiful road at the same time, a wonderful journey. And I look back, and one of the very first things I noticed in one of our very first clients is the topic that we're going to be talking about today. You know, you work so hard to do marketing, a lot of you out there. You work so hard to be a great, fantastic clinician, a great business owner. You work so hard to create the right culture. You work so hard to make sure your team is trained in the right way. But what you have to, a lot of you realize, is a lot of times people are saying no to your treatment because of you. And I know that's hard to hear, and it's not because they don't like you. That's not what I'm talking about. That could be a podcast in itself about rapport building and things like that. Today may shock you what we're actually going to talk about from a biggest mistake you're making in your doctor exam. Those of you who listen a lot, especially if you're clients, you probably would say, well, maybe you're not building enough rapport. Maybe you're not spending enough time to get to know the person, things like that. And it's not. Today, what's going to focus around this 80-20 rule is something that I saw as a major, major problem the very first client that we ever had. And I've seen it in almost every single practice that we do inside their doors, workshops as a private client, if they're an online client, whatever it may be. This is a very common mistake. And it's not like a shot at any of you out there. It's just, and I'm going to dive into it. You're passionate people. You went to school for many years, and you do an unbelievable job changing people's lives. But remember, in order to change more lives, you have to convince more people to say yes to you. And that's what's going to help today. If you're able to apply the principles, and then private clients out there, you know, we work very hard on this because what I'm going to talk about today, it requires a change in mindset. It requires practice and role plays. And yes, doctors out there as business owners, you should be practicing too. Many of you, if you saw the preview video all over social media for today's podcast, I did it from my airplane. And I literally just got home, put on the headset, sat in my office behind the mic, and I talked about a video I did before I took off, is that I was going to pick up my coach at an airport, and we flew all over the city. We were doing touch and goes in Galveston, and we flew to Bay City, Texas, and then to Baytown. And we were all over the place. We were doing all kinds of radio work. We were doing communication. We were doing emergency situations. Okay, what if the engine goes out? And, what do you do? And, it's a constant improvement. It's never resting on your laurels. It's always being better for, in this case, the passengers if I'm flying somebody. But it's the same way is that from a doctor standpoint, you've got to be better for your employees because the harder you work at constantly improving yourself, the more the employees are going to, right? That's culture. That's leadership. But there's two things, and obviously I'm not going to sit here and say and teach you clinical skill sets. That would be, I mean, I guess we could, but you no longer are going to have a business that works if you listen to me. But you've got to understand that the majority of a doctor exam, the majority of a treatment coordinator exam is sales, right? It is the majority. It's non-clinical things, right? And sales is a whole host of things. And let me, for a moment, sales has always been a dirty, scary word inside the healthcare environment. I remember, and this going back to the very first client we ever had, where I said, look, this 80-20 rule that I've taught for so many years, I knew how much it would help them. And when we implemented it, it was one of the things that transformed all kinds of things about their practice. Their clear aligner starts. He was an Invisalign guy, so Invisalign transformed all their other treatment starts as well. And looking back on that, I remember getting into quite a few, I don't want to say arguments, but pretty heated discussions with their treatment coordinator and their just really actually their whole team, but it was especially the treatment coordinator at the time around this sales, this philosopher, this fundamental philosophy that we believe in here at New Patient Group. Is the reality is that people shop, and in order for you to get them to choose you over the other people and at a higher price, you have to be an expert at all the fundamentals that come with sales. It's just that simple. And I used to get into these conversations with her about it's the reason why people don't like sales, and the reason why she didn't is you get this image of this used car dealership person trying to mess you over on price, trying to haggle you, etc. And that's not what sales is. Sales, simply put, is understanding how to educate in an ethical manner that places more value on what you offer than what other people offer. It's just that simple. So there's zero reason to be scared of it. Now, you learning the skill sets on how to place more value than what other people offer, that's the kicker here. Because that comes with psychology, presentation, verbiage, experience, customer service. So many non-clinical skill sets go into that sales word, which is what we're all about here from a New Patient Group standpoint on training team members. And today, we're going to talk more directly to the doctors, but this is also a mistake that happens in the treatment coordinator room all the time. And as I travel over the past 10 years, this is something I've seen every single practice, not 99%. I've seen every single practice, this mistake that I'm going to be talking about today, do. And I'm going to be telling a couple real-life stories. And it's going to be about a couple clients, existing New Patient Group clients. Not going to call out names, but they are listeners of the podcast, and they are going to know that I'm going to be talking about them. So shout out to you guys. And it is so powerful when the light bulb goes on and you realize exactly what you're doing from a sales standpoint on how you're actually turning people off. All right. And today could be easily an all-day workshop, all right? So this fundamental principle that I'm going to teach you today, while simple, it can also be complex, literally could be an all-day workshop to itself. And I want you all to walk away from today. And if you're a New Patient Group client, I'm not worried about you because this is something we work on you with. Like I said, you're over the fact, like you know you're in sales. That's the reality of what happens to a commoditized industry. So you're there. Don't need to convince you. For those of you who aren't quite there yet, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. Here's the reality that you face, and you're going to face it for the rest of your career more and more as more competition arises, is that you have to realize that being the best clinician in your community is no longer enough to dominate. It should be, and it's not like I'm happy sitting behind the mic going, yeah, your clinical skills aren't enough anymore. It's part of everything. It's part of the experience. It's part of the journey, but it's part of it, right? All the other non-clinical things, this is the type stuff you must master because I can assure you your competition won't. So these are the things that will rise you to the top and take you to the next level, but you need to be really good at them. You need to be really good at them. As I dive into these stories today, it's obvious. You're going to hear this. And you're going to go, yep, makes total sense. But actually going and applying it's going to be a different story. I'm going to give you an example. And I'm going to bring this all back and tell stories, those real life ones I was talking about. I'll give you an example. And for those of you who are new listeners, I have to brief that I know you're not a car dealership, okay? So this analogy that I'm about to use is not, I think you're a car dealership. It's just an analogy, okay? Just an analogy. You go shopping for a car, and let's say it's a Mercedes S-Class. Sticker price, $120,000, all right? And you go to 3 different dealerships. And you walk in to dealership A and B, and you tell them, this is what I want. I want the exterior color white. I want black interior on the inside. I want premium sound system, et cetera, et cetera. And dealer A and B take you outside and show you one that's with black exterior, and then they show you one with silver and another color. But they ignore the fact that you told them you wanted a white one. Just pretty much ignore you. Whether it's on purpose or not, they are not delivering to you what you told them they wanted. Then you go to dealership C. And let's say dealership C is the most expensive. Let's say they have a markup for whatever reason, and theirs is $130,000, $140,000. Now, there's a limit to how much higher it can be, but you get the point. And they deliver exactly. They take the time to listen. They take you to the exact car that you want, and they say, here's 2 cars that you want that match your style. Here's some differences, some subtle differences here between car A and B. Who are you most likely to buy from? Doesn't mean you're going to, and it's why there's a whole nother world that goes into it as well. But who are you most likely to buy from? Obviously, the answer is C, right? They're the ones who listen to you. They took the time to show you and discuss with you exactly what you want and then give you a couple options around it. You take New Patient Group. And when I get to and bring this back to your clinical world, I'm going to have a personal belief, kind of a story behind a belief that I have about what's going on in orthodontics, et cetera. This is going on in many other industries as well. Dentistry, plastic surgery, optometry, you name it. If somebody calls us, and this is probably the best analogy of how I feel that you're probably feeling, if you're somebody that went to school, worked your butt off, came out in however many hundreds of thousands or more of debt that you did. You change lives. You're an expert at what you do. Then you get into the orthodontic industry. Like I said, this applies to others as well. And then you're in a situation that I'm going to bring this back here in just a second of why I just said what I just said. You take New Patient Group. New Patient Group, on the surface, it's simple to explain. We do 3 things under one roof. We help you run a better business, and that involves a lot of stuff. Right? It's not just, we call it leadership and culture. But now that with our Doctor Mastermind, you've got all the clients. We have all the clients you would ever need if you wanted to improve your clinical skill sets, whether it be with Invisalign, in-house aligners, something else, whatever. All of our clients, that's what the Mastermind group is. They just help each other. You don't even need to go anywhere. So like our business pillar of our 3 pillars to success of our services is anything related to your business and anything related really to your clinical skill sets now as well. Because culturally, if it's not there, nothing else works. Same way with clinical. You always want to be advancing there as well. And then pillar 2, training. Training of your people to make sure they armed with skill sets that your competition just will never commit to. Why? Because your team carries out a skill set, for the most part, that's non-clinical. So you have to seek non-clinical people to teach those skill sets. Now, our coaching team at New Patient Group also has, the lead TC speaker for Invisalign, Debbie. We have Dr. Bart, Align faculty. Like, we have in-clinic people as well, but in combination with entrepreneur thinkers, with business, sales, etc. You get the point. So we train your team in order to convert at higher levels. And then we do online marketing to help you lower your advertising costs through not having to do pay-per-click, which drives in the wrong kind of patient. And then we do it in a way organically that attracts a more high-quality patient, meaning that they're not looking for the cheapie, or they're not as much coming in looking for the cheapie. And when you combine those three together, you literally do not need anything else on the planet. You're done. And you will kick everyone's... Does it mean you're going to have record growth every year? Of course not. But you're going to kick everyone's butt the rest of your life. Now, I went in depth on the new patient group services for a reason, because I created it, I founded it, and I'm very, very passionate what happens when you combine all three of those services together. It's unbelievable, the results. It's very hard to convince people, but it's unbelievable, the results. So my brain is trained on the full case, right? Using the business as an analogy with the mouth, my brain is trained that every single one of you out there needs the full case, because you can always be a better leader and have a better culture. You can always have a higher trained team, and you can always do your online marketing better. It's an infinite world. There is no, okay, I'm there, I got it. It's a constant improvement, which is why we become a division of your organization that's making sure that happens. Not a consultant, a division of you. Now, because my brain is wired this way, when we get phone calls and I'm involved with the sales process, and the whole team, we're all wired this way because we all believe in what I believe here. So when we get calls in from whatever, they're interested in online marketing as an example. Let's just use that. They want our online marketing. For many years, I woke up one day and I go, for many years, I'm not even utilizing my own teaching. Because what would inevitably happen on every single sales call is we would dive heavily into these three pillars, even if the person showed absolutely no interest in it. I would find myself talking about the importance of culture and that your team, hourly employees, and it's unbelievable to me. And hourly employees, a lot of you listen to this podcast, you know this isn't a shot at you. If you happen to be, this is the first podcast you've ever listened to, if you're an hourly employee, you'll learn I am in this for you. We are here to deliver you skill sets nobody else in this industry delivers to advance your career, put you in difficult positions, etc. And I find it a disservice to you all that you're thrown into the wolves every single day doing a non-clinical job, yet you're not trained by experts in the non-clinical things. So this is not a shot at you. But it is unbelievable to me that people need convincing that their hourly employees need to be trained. Not once, not twice, but on an ongoing, repetitive, role-playing practice basis. It's amazing to me that people need convincing of that. That produces the number one return of any investment you'll ever do, as long as your culture's right. If the culture's not right, the team will never implement it. And it seems so simple, but these are the conversations we get into. So you can see the way my brain thinks is that every person that calls needs a full case. They need it all. I mean, to me, somebody saying, I want online marketing, is like a patient walking through your door saying, I just want my top two teeth straightened. Meanwhile, you're looking at their whole mouth going, boy, oh boy, do you need more than that? Well, that's what happens to us all the time. So the challenge has always been with New Patient Group is to keep the focus on what they said they wanted. Because oftentimes in life, what we want is not what we need. And I joke around with people all the time is that what New Patient Group offers is what people need. They may not want it, but it's what they need. Personal attention, accountability, consistency, consequences if you don't do it, right? Organic content, get your face on the camera. Make sure you have time blocked every week to role play with your team, putting them in difficult positions. You as well as the leader. Like those are all things, of course, that's going to grow a business more than anything else, but it's the things that we don't as business owners tend to do well. So this person that calls us saying, I want online marketing and need more new patients, which is the common thing people think they need. Meanwhile, they're missing three or four new patient calls a month. Don't know about it. Judy, the receptionist, dropped 2. She couldn't overcome a price objection, so that's 5 new patients a month right there. They have they average 5 no-shows a month. So that's now about 10 new patients a month. And then they're missing, the financial presentation. So you get my point, is that we know there's lost opportunities in every practice. And the ones that think they don't have them always have the most. So my mind spins and it immediately goes, all right, you need the whole thing. Here's why. And we lose, and it doesn't happen anymore because we're taking this advice. Our sales conversion has gone through the roof based on our own advice, our own teaching. It just had to wake up one day and realize what the heck we were doing. So they call for online marketing. They need more new patients. This is where the 80-20 sales rule comes in. And then I'm going to bring it back to you all here. The 80-20 sales rule, like I said, is not rocket science, but you'll be the only one doing what I'm about to teach you. The 80-20 sales rule is making sure your focus is 80% on what they told you they wanted and only 20% around what you believe they need. I'm going to repeat that. It's focusing, and the 80-20 rule involves a lot of other things as well. Today, I'm teaching you a part of it. We'll do other podcasts in the future. And like I said, this podcast has been on my mind for many years now. I almost did it in season 1, but it's like we have so many. I also wanted to do it because the economy, people aren't getting free money right now, and just the economy out there isn't great. And there's podcast listeners that have texted me saying I need help with conversion. That's why I went this route. Because this is a great way to start increasing your conversion right away if you nail it. So 80% of your focus is around what they told you they wanted. 20% is around what they need. And I'm going to bring this back to you. If I were you, like I was saying, I'd be frustrated. And I get it because as an expert, and I call myself that from a business standpoint, I'm still a young entrepreneur, have a lot of successful companies, all built around the principles that we're teaching you. And I know every listener out there needs the 3 pillars we have under one roof. You, we'll call you an orthodontist, for most of the orthodontists listening, you know that every person that walks through needs the full case, functionality, and aesthetics. But what do most people want? Aesthetics. And I'm not over here sitting, obviously you can't do a case that's going to hurt them. So don't, let's make sure, just get on the same page. That's not what I'm saying. But, and I've got some stories that are going to be eye-openers here in just a second. But think about this. Think about your passion, like my passion is for the business aspects. Think about what your passion is when you see somebody's mouth. Adult walks through the door. They tell you they're interested in the social 6. Obviously, they're not going to call it that, but just for terms of, describing what they're wanting. Meanwhile, you look in the mouth, it's a complete mess. Their bites off, everything's whacked out. They're at risk of cracking teeth because they're so malaligned, blah, 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 blah. On down the list. What most of you do out there, and what most of the TCs do out there, is immediately dive into all the things that you can do for them to fix the whole case. That's also financially what you're presenting. And I'm going to tell you what you're doing through a couple stories, because it'll bring this to light. When people say they need to think about it, God did not make us. It's like your no-shows, right? Your no-shows are 95+% your receptionist's fault. Why? Because your receptionist didn't put enough value on them showing up. They went somewhere else. Because by the time your receptionist answered, your receptionist was probably the 3rd or 4th one they talked to. That's what is happening to the dental environment, orthodontic environment, et cetera, et cetera. God did not make us honest in this department. No shows happen. People do not call your office and say, Susie, to your front desk girl, Susie, I bought somewhere else, so therefore please take me off of your schedule. No, people don't do that. They just no-show you. It's the easy route out. It's the same way when they're telling you, I need to think about it. That is translation. You miss something. Now, of course, sometimes, no matter how great you are, people are going to need to think about it. But people make all kinds of excuses. They're not going to sit there and say, you missed the mark. You didn't listen to me. They're not going to say things like that. So you have to pick up on them yourself. You all have to understand the environment you're in from a competition standpoint. And this is the story, the first one. Went in, very first time I was ever in the practice. All-day workshop. And I do those workshops differently, but most of the time, the majority of them is just hanging out. It's like going into a restaurant and saying, just do what you do. They just taking notes all day long. And from listening to them on the phones, to the ambiance of the practice, to the exam flow, to the digital workflow, to how they're scanning with the iTero machine or whatever machine they have. Are they even using it? How they present money. Do they have time to follow up with people that didn't buy from them? Not once or twice, but consistently over the course of time. Just the whole process. And then I usually take notes, create a video from it, and send out the video to the team and the new patient group coaches. We put a plan together. I'm sitting in with the treatment coordinator, and I'm listening to a lady, nice Asian lady, and I believe she was going to a wedding. I think is what it was. I think she was in one. She wasn't the bride, but I think she was in a wedding. And she constantly, over and over and over again, was talking about her social six. Again, not with that terminology. They don't know it. But that's what she was talking about. She just wanted a few teeth straightened and made beautiful. That's what was bothering her. That's what was bothering her. That's it. Nothing more. And the treatment coordinator was completely ignoring it, constantly going into the tools, Invisalign, different things, and how the functionality is so important and the consequences of not having the functionality taken care of too. And literally, and this is the ironic thing, all of you out there, so many of you are worried about being scared of sales. Well, that's what you should be scared of, because that's what the car dealerships do. Is they try to talk you into something else that you don't want. So the funny thing is it's actually worse the way you're doing it. Because the two were completely disconnected. This lady was sitting there saying, I want leather seats and a white exterior. And the TC was constantly saying, no, you shouldn't. You should have tan seats and a black exterior. Again, I understand you're not a dealership. Same thing with us. I want online marketing, more new patients. Well, after analyzing your practice, you don't need more new patients. You need better conversion. Right? It doesn't work. Even though you know better. You as an orthodontist, TCs out there, of course you know better than the patient. Of course you do. Same thing with us. We're going to know better on what your business needs than many of you. It's not a criticism. It's just we've seen so many practices. Our practices, literally, we do not have a client that's been with us 2 years that did not have their best 12 months of their life. We do not have one. 100% success rate. Why? Because they do the things I talk about on the podcast at an extraordinarily high level. But see, sometimes your knowledge clinically and my knowledge from a business standpoint, it doesn't mean squat. If the person's sitting there telling you something completely different. I realize it's kind of a slippery slope, because if you're new to this podcast and you're hearing this, you could be going, you little son of a gun. Like, I went to, and I get it, and I respect it, and you change lives. And that's why the avid listeners out there, this is not like your knowledge and your clinical skill sets don't matter. They matter more than ever before. But what also matters more than ever before is you being an expert at listening and realizing what you have to do to increase your conversion. And this lady talked over and over and over again, gave repetitive remarks on what she wanted. And in comes the doctor. Same thing. Doctor goes through this very complete. It's interesting watching a lot of you out there, because some of the orthos, and other specialties as well, Very, very thorough exams, spend a lot of time, and there's others that are in or out. And I have arguments that support both ways, because the challenge I have with people that go in and say the doctor should be in there for 2 minutes and leave, those are the people that have never owned a company before, because that only works depending on what your business model is and who your demographic is. And we have statistical proof around that. Do not let somebody just randomly say you've got to get in and out of there quicker. Do not let anybody do that, because it doesn't work for everybody. I've had podcasts about that, talked briefly about it. And it goes back to, and shout out Bob Skopak out there. So Dr. Skopak and I are going to be speaking at the AAO together for OrthoFi, an all-day workshop. Can't wait to see a lot of you out there. So they let me say, all right, we're going to let you pick a clinician to speak with. I reached out, and we're going to have an awesome day. But he's a perfect example. If he goes in there for 1 or 2 minutes and leaves, practice goes absolutely downwards. Ella Osborne out there, millennial driven, downtown single adult business professionals. If she goes in there for 35 minutes, hers goes down the tank. So you've got to understand your business model and what type of experience to install inside that business model. It's not a one size fits all. It doesn't work. But this doctor's exam was beautiful. It was like, I was amazed. I was sitting back there going, unbelievable how thorough it was. The communicate, like, it was a good exam. And that's the thing, is this doesn't mean that your exam stinks, but it does mean you have got to listen better, because this is what happened too. She said again, and you could tell she was getting frustrated. She said again, I don't want that, what you're telling me. I just want these straightened, pointing at her front teeth. It was only like 3-4 teeth, tops, that she wanted done. Completely ignored her. And she, they quoted her a full case fee, $6,700, $6,500, whatever it was. And she walked. And the whole time I was taking notes. And after she left, I showed the practice the notes. I said, can you guys read this? And what it said is there's no way this lady, I knew from 3 minutes into that TC exam, this lady was never buying. No way does this lady buy based on how these exams are going. Why? They completely ignored what she was there for. Completely ignored it. Now, the practice knows better. It should have been a full case. She clearly needed it. Looking at the photos, the x-rays, the iTero scan, she clearly needed the full case. Every business owner needs the full case as related to their business. Doesn't mean they stink, but it means you can always be better. But that doesn't mean that that's what they want. It's the same thing here. As a matter of fact, with New Patient Group, we used to have one program. It was everything I described earlier under one package, and that's what the program was. You didn't have a choice, but it really hurt our sales. And that's when, again, I listen to what I practice, what I preach, right? Like, you can't go in there and say, we have one case. It's the full case. You get it. Here it is. In this economy, those days are over. You have to be an expert at selling them what they want while also educating them on what they need. And there's an art to that. And that art cannot be taught in a podcast. Our clients have that art through practice, role plays, consistency, etc. And a lot still go back to their old habits. That's the whole point of repetition, is that you're always going to go back. As other things get better, other things that were better go down. That's the point. It's just always an ebb and flow from a business standpoint. You just try to minimize the downs and maximize the ups. So I told him on a piece of paper, this lady's not buying. She didn't, and she never called back. But once I brought it to the attention, the TC and the doctor were like, yeah, you're right. Another story I have from you, and this one I think is even better, because this girl actually did call back. Same thing, social sick situation, wedding, another practice there for an all-day workshop. Same situation, I'm writing notes, and the lady walks. And I sit down with the doctor and the TC afterwards. I say, look, I guarantee you that if you would have handled this exam this way, and I demonstrated it, practiced it a little bit, that lady buys from you right now. And as we're talking, the day starts going by, other patients, I'm doing some monitoring. We end up back up in his office. It was probably, 3-4 hours later. While we're in the office, front desk girl comes by and says, hey, we got that patient that was in here on the phone. And what does that patient do? That patient on the phone says, can I get a smaller case? Is that an option? Because I just want, she came out and said what most people will not do, what this lady did. They got lucky. But after I said, look, if you would have just sold her on what she told you she wanted, you walk out of there with a same-day financial commitment, same-day start. That patient calls back while I'm still there and tells them exactly what I said. Look, I will buy from you if I can get a lower price case. And this right here brings it all together, because obviously you can't do a case at a lower price that's going to hurt them. And I know a lot of you out there are worried about, if you do just partial case, what's the dentist going to say? How's that going to reflect in your clinical skills? Which means you do have to educate that dental practice on what went on, right? Because it will. If they go back to their dentist and the dentist goes, I thought you got your teeth straightened, and they just, the front are straight and the back are jacked up, the dentist is going to think that. So you have to be proactive about it. You have to let the dentist know this is what the patient wanted, this is what we're doing. And it also, again, doesn't mean that you don't try to get the full case. But all of these 6-month, 7, 8-month case, you pop them into dental monitoring, you put them in Invisalign. If you do another clear aligner, you put them in another clear aligner, and they are in and out. They're hardly even there, and they think you're God when you leave, or when they leave. When they're done, you may be looking at their back of their teeth going, oh, God. But they're smiling, jumping up and down, thinking you're God because you straightened what they came in for. And this relates, so many businesses relate so many things, no matter what you sell. You have to focus 80% of your attention around what they want. And you've got to be okay with charging a lower fee for it. Now, you can always present both cases, right? Just like, look, we've got this type of car. Now, this is more than what you were looking for, but here's how it will benefit you. Here's how you'll enjoy it. And then, boom, here's the one, and it meets exactly what you were looking for. All right? That's okay. Again, knowing that you're not a car dealership, but that's the philosophy. And it's such an unbelievable way to increase conversion, but you've got to wrap your head around it. You have to be okay. If that person says, look, the social 6, again, that's not what they say. That's what I'm here for. You have to be a master at going, you came to the right place. Matter of fact, let's look at some ways that we absolutely specialize in those particular areas. Doctor has treated thousands of these cases. We get patients just like you all the time coming in. We're going to knock that out of the park for you. So simple. Let's take a look at some of the photos. Let's just make sure, and then pull up the scan, right? Let's look at the iTero scan. Let's move the teeth around, get an agreement on if this makes you happy, if we can take you from A to B, boom, boom, boom. And obviously that's a brief little snippet of something so much more in depth that we save for the new patient group clients. But the point is my response back is absolutely we can knock that out. And the focus then on is around that, while still educating on 20% of your time and 20% of your focus around how the other, and this is the other thing, how does the other stuff benefit what they still want, right? How does the functionality, if that's what you go and correct at a higher cost and higher investment, how does that still make what their initial want was, the social 6, even prettier? How does it support them? For example, let's use our world for a second. Using the 80-20 rule, somebody calls us and says, interested in online marketing is what we want. Based on what I just taught you and what we were talking about, the response there is fantastic. You're not going to find a finer online marketing team that cares more, that produces more custom, beautiful web designs, unbelievable attention to detail with search engine optimization that was going to rank you on the first page, social media posts that are all tailored around you, and so much more, like video marketing, YouTube station, best in the business. Okay, there's the response. But as you dive in and you learn more about the business, how you bring that back on the 20% to educate them also on how the training can help the online marketing, as an example. Now, Dr. Jones, what you have to remember is good online marketing is going to drive more phone calls to your practice, or it's going to drive more of the right phone calls to your practice. That's probably more important. You're better off getting 30 calls from the right people a month than 100 calls from the wrong ones. But as that comes in, we want to lower your online marketing costs, as I'm sure you do too. And when you train with our phone training, inevitably you're going to convert more of those callers into people that show up and show up ready to buy. Also, with RightChat, if you're doing marketing, you're going to miss new patient calls. Every practice misses 3 to 5 a month, right in there. Bigger practice, a lot more. But, if you're a single 2-location practice, you're missing 3 to 5 new patient opportunities a month just from missed calls. So we have RightChat that's going to answer those for you. So because your conversion from that's going to go up, it's going to benefit your online marketing investment because you're not going to have to spend as much. More conversion, less advertising dollars. So you see what I did there? See, that helps make an additional sale for new patient group, but it also helps the client. It's not like a sales pitch that's not going to help them. It does help them. It was all honest because the more your conversion goes up, the less advertising you have to spend. But you see how the training benefits the online marketing. Kind of a no-brainer. Not a lot of people talk about it that way. But the reality of the situation is that benefits the client. It also benefits us with an additional sale. But you see, the majority of the conversation is still about the online marketing. But the 20% education around why you need training as well brings back to how it benefits the online marketing, exactly how you all have to do it in the exam. The 20% educating on functionality in the whole case, you have to bring that back on how that benefits what their want was, the 80%. So you're still, even the 20% education, is tying it back to the 80% focus. I want all of you out there to really look at yourself in the mirror and say, do you do this? Meaning that, are you making this mistake? The mistake, again, is trying to sell them on something they do not want, but you know they need. This is a mistake made by so many people, and I get it. You're passionate. You know what they need. You know it. I feel it every single day using the business analogy, just going, oh God, you don't need more new patients. That your business is a mess. Tammy won't do anything you say. Susie won't implement anything you want her to do. You're constantly losing employees. Your conversion's in the toilet, and yet you think the answer is spending money on new patients, right? And I'm so powerful. I'm so passionate about it. I think all of you out there have seen me on stage. You listen to the podcast. You know how passionate I am about these things. It's so hard to convince people, but I'm so, that they need that full case. It's the same way in ortho. The same situation. So you are losing cases all the time with people going, let me think about it, that are going somewhere else, buying a treatment fee for less because the case is less time. And if you know us at all, we want you to be prestige pricing. If you listen to the previous podcast, you'll learn more about that. We want our clients, and we want you out there, to intentionally be the highest priced in your community. But when you do that, everything you do has to be reflective of why you're the highest, both clinically and non. But you also have to be, and this is not about being cheap. It's not about being cheap. It's about being smart. If you can close and obviously this is a make-believe number. This is, if you're California, it's going to be higher than, if you're in where I am, Houston, because it's a lower cost of living, things like that. So this is just an example number. But you got to be okay with a $3,800 6-month case. What are they going to be there? Twice? Once? A couple times? Whatever it may be, in clear aligners and dental monitoring as an example. You're not hardly even going to see them, and they're going to think you're God. And you got to close that otherwise would have walked. And guess what? They may come back once they realize the full functionality is putting themselves at risk of whatever, cracked teeth, whatever it may be. You may see them for the full case later, especially if someone's coming in like those two examples I talked to you about. They're like, they want to get ready for a wedding. The last thing in their mind's functionality and bite. It's beauty. And that's okay. TCs out there listening, you have to be a master at spending time listening to what they want. You've got to set the doctor up for success by communicating that to them. Be okay with charging a lower price for the smaller case. What happens also? Those two people that walked, one came back in those examples. What happens if If you knock it out of the park for that first, the Asian lady at the first practice I was talking about, what happens if you knock it out of the park for her? Do you think she's going to go to that wedding and maybe talk about you? I think so. Of course she is. There's so many real life sales scenarios that you can bring into your world if you just open up your eyes. And I know it's difficult. And I respect it so much that it's difficult. But this is where the whole non-clinical world that your practice exists in, you've got to make sure you're getting advice from people that are experts in those non-clinical, the sales, hospitality, customer service, verbiage, psychology, presentation. And then you've got to make sure they understand how to customize all that to the type of business model you want to run. It's not a one-size-fits-all, like I was talking about earlier. Just because it works for one doctor does not mean it's going to work for you. So be careful if you go to an event and watch one speak, not because they don't know what they're talking about, but the model they're running may be completely different than your model, which means what they're saying won't work for you. Now, there's principles and foundational items that work for everybody, of course. But you've got to seek and really put your mindset in the right place, because this right here is a sales 101. And I get some of you out there, and really, no one's going to listen to this podcast that has this mindset. Maybe you came across, there's some out there who are like, no, I'm the clinician. I'm going to tell them what needs to happen. And I get why you would have that mindset. You're the expert. You worked your butt off to go through years of school, come out in debt to be the expert. And that's what I was talking about earlier, how I would feel if I was in your shoes. I would hate it. I mean, this is a hard economy to deal with competition and all the non-clinical things, inevitably what really moves the needle like that. In many ways, it sucks. But at the same time, if you're able to wrap your head around it, you're going to get to be a great clinician for so many more people because they're going to be choosing you. Spend your time focusing on what people are telling you they want. It shows you're listening, it shows you care, and it shows you don't have the doctor complex, by the way, because that's the other thing I tell our practices all the time. Look, if you aren't listening, they immediately think that you have this, I'm the white coat, just shut your mouth, I'm going to tell you what to do mentality. And that used to work. And in some industries, it still does. But in a lot, it doesn't. Ortho being one of them. It does not work anymore. But it also doesn't mean that you don't still tell them what you believe they need. Like, you still have to be the expert. And this is where the fine line that our clients are so good at, work so hard at. There's a fine line on that 80-20 rule. It doesn't mean that you're a pushover. We have a podcast coming up. I'm going to be calling it The Difference Between the Pushover and a Leader. Which one are you? Right? It talks about it because there's a fine line. Just like there's a fine line here in your doctor exam and your TC exam. This doesn't mean that you cower in the corner and just say, okay, Betty, I'll do whatever you want. Totally. No, if you want a sure way for them not to buy from you, do that. But this is becoming a master at making sure they understand why you are the best at correcting exactly what it is they want. And spending the majority of your time on the iTero and the outcome simulator and the view and smile viewer and etc. Making sure that when the teeth, as you move them around and showcase that you're the artist, is focused on what they're telling you they want. Such a powerful sales tool if you commit. While I understand why this could be aggravating, at the same time, it is a way to change your practice for the better. It's a way to increase 5-star reviews. The more people that buy from you, the more chances are they're going to go write a 5-star review. And it's also a way to keep you from getting negative ones, because you run the risk of people leaving saying, look, that practice doesn't listen. Now, if they want something that you believe if you're going to do that's going to hurt them, different story, right? You're going to educate them on why that is and why you can't do it. But that's not really what I'm talking about today. You all know the majority of the time, if they're wanting the social six straightened, you can do that. You can do that. So be a master at closing the smaller case. It's okay to close the smaller case. And I'm not telling you to do that every single time. You also have to be an expert at educating them on what they need. There's a way to do it. Our clients are masterful at it. But your focus has got to be around what they want. Reverse that. Start doing TC exam, doctor exam. Reverse your mindset. Focus on what they want first and what you know they need second. Be okay with closing an occasional smaller case. They're going to think you're God when you straighten those teeth beautifully. Use this 80-20 rule to your advantage. Become an expert at sales. It's okay. Like I said at the front end, there's no need to be scared of that word. Become an expert at sales. Through this 80-20 rule, be a master at educating people on why you're the best at what they're telling you they want. Don't ignore what they're telling you, and grow your practice. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of the week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon, upcoming in April. Bye-bye.